Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whiskey. My name's VinPF, and on today's episode we're going to be covering another bottle from Heroes and Heretics. This one here is in a range called the Disciples, and in fact it is a Craigellachie 12-year-old, but we'll get more into the bottle in a moment. I have just covered one of their blends, actually, the 48 blend, so if you haven't seen that one, make sure you go and check that video out. I'm going to be covering 3 more of their range coming up as well, some very special bottles. So a massive thank you to Heroes and Heretics for sending those bottles over to me for review. Now this one here is the Disciples. It says on here actually first edition, so I'm hoping this is going to be a long range. But one of the things that really draws me to this brand, I have to say, when I first got the email from them about themselves and would I like to cover some of their products, the way that they market themselves, which is very no nonsense, I have to say, and I really like how they value their whiskey. That's kind of the main selling point for me, and it really fits into the ethos of the channel. Something I'm looking at this year is, rather than kind of more affordable whiskies, let's say, is the whiskey a good valued whiskey? This one, for instance, as I mentioned earlier, is a Craigellachie 12-year-old, which we know that there's a Craigellachie 13-year-old and a 17-year-old already from the distillery. But this one's about sort of £70 in the UK, maybe 75 depending on where you look to get it from. Also, good point to note that if you do buy direct from Heroes and Heretics on their website, you can join their tribe. And that's not an affiliate link at all for me. You can just go directly to them and you can get 10% straight off of their own prices, which I think is pretty damn good. So already that's going to be way cheaper than you'll find it anywhere else. Anyway, this is the one thing I like. So you can see here listed all of the classic information that you need. I may as well just spool it off to you. Craigellachie Distillery, sherry butt. It was distilled in 2007, bottled in 2020. There was only 727 bottles of this made, so when it's gone, it's gone. And that even gives you the cask number right there. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sherry butt whiskey might be alarm bells for no nonsense whiskey. I tend to get a lot of kind of sulphury notes off sherried stuff. But after the last one we tried, which was the 48, also a sherry cask, I found it actually to be quite tasty. It didn't get any of those kind of sulphury notes, those gunpowdery notes at all, which is pretty awesome. Let's get into the actual whiskey itself, and we'll find out if it's kind of worth that £75 mark or a little bit cheaper if you might find it elsewhere. In the new No Nonsense whiskey glasses, you can pick them up on the website if you're interested. Let's get onto the nose. Now, straight away, it's unmistakably sherry. Now, I'm not even sure if I mentioned it earlier, but it is natural coloured and non-chill filtered, so what you see is what you get there. It's got a nice deep colour for a 12-year-old whiskey. Bags of sherry. We're talking dried fruits. We're getting those kind of classics, those raisins, those sultanas, that sort of thing. But for me, it's kind of like a thick laden treacle, toffee. Really good, really good. There's something bitter in the back end of it as well. Something a little tannic, a little leathery, but all over. Really, it's not a very sweet nose, that's for sure, but it's really deep and inviting. I'm a big fan of that. Let's get onto the palate. Right, so straight from the off, it's a huge 51% ABV hit. Oh, I'm going to have another sip. Wow, more of those kind of raisins coming through. That bitterness is kind of unveiling itself as more of like a dark chocolate vibe to me, which is really nice. But there's more of that treacle coming through as well. I'm a huge fan of treacle, I have to say. But so for me, really tasty. As you can see, I keep wanting to come back to it. And on the back end, there's this kind of spiciness to it, but it's not peppery. Like I always say, kind of a lot like peppery spiciness, but this tends to be a bit more cinnamon, more nutmeg. But the finish just goes on and on and on. I can still feel it now. Nice and tingly. It's getting the saliva flowing, ready for some more. In fact, I don't often do this, but I'm going to have one more sip. Now, as a complete package, I'm sold on it. It is expensive at £75, but if you look at the current market for Craigellachie's especially, it's pretty much on par with everything else you're getting, maybe even a bit cheaper than stuff you're getting, because you can pick up some maybe 10-year-old Craigellachie's for the same price, but are you getting a single cask one? Probably not. 51%. You might get a little bit higher on the ABV. I know Boutique Whisky are doing kind of similar kind of Craigellachie age statements, but they're half litres and they're similar price. So I think the price is very fair indeed. And if you're into that distillery, it's not often you see them kind of out and out as well, because they're mostly for the Dewar's blends, but you can get age statements from them. So I think this is a great opening salvo in the Disciples range. And again, definitely worth checking out the Heroes and Heretics stuff, because some of the things I've got coming up, I'm going to show you quickly, briefly, 2 of these bottles that I've got coming up, because I'm very excited. There's another one as well, but we'll keep that one to ourselves. This is a 27-year-old Bunnahabhain. I'm very excited to drink that. And this is an 8-year-old American whiskey from Heaven Hill. So, and this one's an absolute monster. What is it, ABV? 63.5%. So they're going to be coming up on the channel very soon. I'm going to be kind of covering them in good succession. But yeah, I obviously heartily recommend Heroes and Heretics. This one in particular is a really good step up from their entry level 48 blended, which was also good. If any of that in that review has interested you at all, I recommend you go and check them out. I pretty much can't say fairer than that.